Okay, we're obviously really excited. It's just a great opportunity and real celebration, for our season and our successes. And we have a very, very similar schedule to what we had last week. That's not necessarily good or bad, but the schedule is the same. And I think with that being a fact, I think our players and coaches can operate with a good understanding of what the next couple of days are going to look like. So the only difference would be last week we had a bunch of finals that we had to proctor at 9 a.m. The day before the game. This week our finals are over. So we're going to practice here this afternoon. We're going to bus down to the airport and we're going to fly out of here around 6 o'clock. So we're really excited, a great opportunity, an awful lot to play for. And I'll take any questions at this time from the media.
Danny, will Richmond change the way it snaps the ball in terms of just ordinary cadence or something different?
Yeah, we have a number of different protocols for huddling, communicating in the huddle, signaling, cadence, and snapping of the football. So we do have an option or two, depending on how much of a factor the noise is during certain stretches of the game. It's going to be a factor. It's just not necessarily going to be a factor the whole game. I had spoken earlier this week about what we've done, and I feel real good about what we've done. I mean, your resources are your resources, and we really couldn't do anything on our field with noise. Finals were going on, and where we're located here, it's hard to really generate that type of decibel level. So we finished every day in the arena here, in the basketball arena, and I love watching basketball practice, and I really have a great appreciation for Chris Mooney and what he's done here and what he's doing here. And on occasion, it's deafening loud in there, just deafening as he's getting ready to go on the road, and catches my attention every time. And I walk down the hall and I go watch him, And so we've been in there. We're going to go in there again today, So we go out on the field, we run through all of our plays, we run through all of our scripts, execution, video. And then we go into the arena, and then we focus solely on signaling, communication, huddling, breaking the huddle, and getting the ball snapped. Because once the ball is snapped, the noise is irrelevant. All right, so it's really interesting to witness and recognize the things that your players pick up on. In terms of the communication, they got to be heightened awareness. They got to see more because they're not going to hear as much. The first time we huddled up, and again, it's deafening in the arena here when we turn it up. First time they huddled up, every player was leaning all the way in to read the lips of the quarterback as he read off the play off his wristband. And so I think we've done everything we can do, under the circumstances that you have. So the best thing to do is to advance the ball and put it in the end zone, and then you won't get quite as much crowd noise.
Was the situation in the atmosphere at JMU at all comparable? Not maybe in terms of decibel, but because of what you had to do on offense, you can't really hear there either, so you can kind of use the same thing?
Yeah, we went down to JMU, I'm losing track of years, a couple years ago, and we were coming off of our goal line down on that closed end, and we were unable to communicate. And we took a penalty, and we had a delay. So I do think there's a lot of similarities. I do. I recognize that at peak moments, what we'll hear Friday night will be more significant. But as far as just the flow of the game, there's a large stadium down there at JMU, and but I do think there are some similarities, and there is some things that we can reference moving forward.
It seems like you guys have thrived this year on being the quote-unquote underdog on several different occasions at JMU and then Illinois State last week. I mean, is that a pretty fair assessment?
Yeah, I think it is, and I talked about it, I think, in August, about, trying to be that team that plays with the confidence of a champion, but always having that attitude and the edge of the underdog. And, there have been moments this year that we really have emulated that model right there. And JMU was certainly one of them. And, certainly up at Illinois State last weekend, even the William and Mary experience, they came in here ranked 7th in the country, so I do think that my team has embraced, that theme, and I do think that it is a factor.
This is probably an old topic by now, but if you wouldn't mind discussing your offense is different this year in style than it was to last year. I know you've got a new coordinator and you've got Can you speak to that?
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing to recognize is that in a lot of ways, all we have done is return to our comfort zone. And in past years, even my first season here, when John Lobb was the quarterback, we were under center, 2 backs in the backfield. We were running Kendall Gaskins. Seth Fisher was playing fullback, had a tight end in the game, run and play action. And that was my MO at Liberty for the majority of our time there. Last year and last year and a half, we had a lot of receivers, had a lot of talented wide receivers. Stephen Barnett would have been the one that would have been also in this mix or this conversation. I had 2 quarterbacks that we thought we could win with. I thought Strauss's ability to catch and throw the ball out of the gun was kind of his gift. Putting him under center really didn't do a whole lot for our offense. So we became a little more gun, catch, and throw team. And, I said this, I don't know if it was here, but, last year was the first season. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, Bob says I'm right. He don't know what I'm going to say, but he says I'm right. Last year was the first season in the University of Richmond football history that we threw for over 3,000 yards. Well, we did it again this year. So we did it 2 years in a row with 2 different coordinators, 2 different quarterbacks, and really in 2 different systems. I made a comment the other day. We've been fortunate enough, and my staff, to have won 6 conference championships in 10 seasons. We've had 5 different quarterbacks. So it's not like it's just one way, but this year I feel as if we have returned to what is my comfort zone. It's certainly Coach Fisher's comfort zone. It's the best system for Kyle Laletta. And then I think what we learned that we maybe didn't know going in, but what we learned was that Jacoby's a better runner when we're not in the shotgun. And I think that has been the byproduct that maybe has caught us all a little bit off guard. Some teams, like last week, the Copperidge kid, who's a really good zone runner out of the gun. That's kind of what they did. They do it all day, every day, and that's their play. And they have a couple outside plays. But, Jacoby is really comfortable and natural getting the ball a little deeper in the backfield out of the tailback position or the dot position in the single back. So that was kind of maybe an unexpected consequence or blessing of our changing back to our comfort zone.
To go off that offense and Jacoby Green just having a monster year, North Dakota State doesn't get to 4 national championships in a row without a great running defense. Is this going to be the toughest challenge your offensive line has to face on the way to potentially a national championship game?
Yeah, I think common sense logic would say yes. I'm going to start on the other side of the ball. When you look at their offensive line is enormous. They're 300 plus across the board, and 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". Their tight ends are 250. Their fullbacks 250. Their quarterbacks are 215, 219. Their tailbacks are 212, 218, 222. My numbers may be off a bit. John's checking me here for accuracy. John. But point being, this is a program, North Dakota State, built on a physical approach to the game and a physical philosophy and a run-first philosophy. So defensively, they're very in tune with having to defend and stop the run. It's something they do every day in practice. You know, these kids, we compete year-round in spring football. You know, you got to stop the run, you got to stop the eye, you got to stop the running game, you know. And you know how unusual that is today in college football. And that's why some defenses have struggled with the pro formation. You know, in pro I mean, gosh, I mean, they're having a hard time stopping pro I. They don't see it that much anymore. Or their offense is in the spread, and they're always defending the spread every day. And now all of a sudden there's a tight end and a fullback in a game. Oh, my gosh, what are we going to do? You know, and so I think it starts with that. I think it starts with the reality that their makeup is run the ball, control the ball, be physical, pound them, and in the fourth quarter wear them out. And, you know, they're not all that committed to thinking they got to beat people 52-0, or, you know, that's not really their bag. They just want to control the ball, control the clock, control the game, wear you out, you know. And again, I admire that. I mean, I don't know there's a better way to play the game than that way right there. So for us, you know, do we have the horses to hold up and play a 60-minute football game? I think we do. You know, that's the thing that I'm excited about. Our offensive line has been, you know, exceptional this year. A great group of kids, well coached, physical, committed. Our defensive line, we got Brandon Waller back. I'm excited about that. You know, so we'll see how it plays out. I think somewhere in there I answered your question.
In retrospect, the most pivotal part of last week's game was the first 10 minutes. How can you replicate that?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I don't know if you can. I mean, you hope to. You're going to need some moments of confidence early, you know, and some spurts of control and momentum. It'll be a game of momentum swings. I think that when we have it, we have to recognize it and we have to ride it. And then when they have it, we need to find a way to stem the tide and swing the momentum back in our favor. You know, fast start is always a great formula for success. And, you know, strong finish. I think I read this in one of their publications, North Dakota State, but talking about fast start and strong finish. I mean, that's ain't a whole lot harder to figure out than that. It's almost that simple. And they'll try to get off to a fast start, and then when the opponent tries to get back in the game or closes the gap or makes a run, they try to hold them off. And I think that's the mindset of my football team. We're certainly not as advanced with our program as they are, but we're not really playing their program. We're playing this year's team, you know, and it's not best out of 7, like I said before. It's a, you know, one-and-done event. So it'll be exciting, and we're going to need to get off to a good start just to create some confidence and some momentum.
Coach Rocco's, go ahead, Paul.
For a lot of coaches, the system is a system, and they don't want to make adjustments. They don't want to change. But you're saying you're willing to sort of run your offense based on the talent you have.
Yes.
Why are you so flexible?
Well, it's the same thing with our defense. I mean, we've been multiple defensively. I think that I have enjoyed working with Bob Trott here the last 4 years. We're evolving every day. I mean, it's been a lot of fun for a guy that loves defense, and we are finding ways to make ourselves better and work through solutions and solve problems. I think the reason why, and I've said this before, I believe at this level, let me offer it like this. When you're in the NFL, you draft players to fit your system because you're able to select. When you're at Alabama, you recruit players to fit your system because you're able to select. As you trickle down, the ability to select your roster is less and less in your control. So you look at the quarterback position. You might say we kind of would like to have a quarterback like Kyle Laletta, but the best guy on the board right now for us is a different kind of quarterback. How can we pass on the best guy on the board to try to get a guy that fits the system that really might not be good enough? So I take that analogy to really every position on my football team. And I think at this level, I think that's one of the things that you get to do, and I enjoy doing. I enjoy evaluating talent, recruiting talent, placing talent. Where are we going to play them? And then obviously developing that talent. And I think to our offense, that's probably one of the reasons I've been more willing to be a little more diverse, from year to year.
All your players were in junior high. You weren't even here 7 years ago in 2008. But for those of us that were, there are a lot of parallels between that team and this team, not the least of which is the path that they had to take to get where they ended up. Do you draw any parallels for this team saying, listen, these kids were the same as you, same talent level, same school, same institution, this can be done?
Yeah, I really haven't much. My first memory when you offered that was I can remember I was at Liberty. We had an official visit weekend, and we were out at dinner at a nice restaurant with the recruits and all. And I was stuck. I wasn't at the bar, but that's where the TV was. So I was stuck. I was stuck at the bar watching Richmond and Northern Iowa, and that late comeback. And Mike and I are friends and have been friends through the years. And I was rooting for Richmond, and. So, but everyone's recollection is so different. Some players in our program only recognize the banner that hangs in the stadium. Because like you said, they weren't connected to Richmond football in junior high. And so I try to be appropriate and timely. With the reality that we've been there before. But I have also been very conscious of talking about not looking back and trying to continue to move forward and look to the future. So there's a little balance in there, and they've certainly heard me talk about having won a national championship here in 2008. And I'm really excited and proud of what our staff and our players have been able to accomplish to this point.
Coach Rocco, so much is talked about getting the players ready for a stage they've never seen. For you personally, as a head coach, you're also entering a stage that you've never seen. Do you do anything to prepare yourself for that? I'm not saying you give off a vibe that you need that, but do you prepare yourself differently?
Yeah, well, I don't prepare myself differently. I think, the routine that I have is very much my routine. I think that we all draw upon the experiences we've had over the years, and, when you're sitting in this seat, it's the FCS playoffs. When you're in NFL, they're talking about the playoffs and the Super Bowl. When you're at Boston College or the University of Texas, you're talking about going to a BCS Bowl, or things like that, January 1 Bowl. And, so all those experiences I think are extremely valuable. Getting your team ready for a big game, is getting your team ready for a big game regardless of what level you're at. So what I learned from guys like Tom Coughlin or Bill McCartney or John Makovic or Al Groh, those things are very dear to me in terms of how I go about planning and communicating. And I'll say this here, I kind of probably shouldn't, but, last week for me was the first week in my career as a head coach, and this is my 10th season, that I felt no pressure. First time ever. And 130 games or something, somewhere in that number. And so for the coach, you're always under pressure. You're playing up, you're playing down, you're in conference, you're on the road, you're at 12 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you got guys hurt, you got all this stuff. You're always under pressure. I told my staff Friday morning at our 9 o'clock staff meeting, exactly, that's my lead-in. Guys, this is the first time for me in 10 years that I don't feel any pressure. So I think to have a element of calmness, I think, is significant. And I recognize that in some of those guys that I had worked for. And they were the tightest, maybe in the most unusual moments. But in the biggest moments, they were at their calmest. And I think that's the best way to offer leadership.
Why did you feel no pressure last week?
Well, I don't know. I just didn't. I think that when you get to a certain point, you recognize that you've had a successful season. And there's varying degrees of being successful, but I think it'd be hard to argue we didn't have a successful season. So maybe once you cross that threshold, and who's the judge of that? I don't know. Maybe it's me. But once you cross that threshold, you may look at things a little bit differently. So I like where we're at, and I'm certainly excited about this opportunity Friday night.
We got one more
Yes,
question
sir.
real quick from a reporter who wasn't able to be here today.
Yep.
Tom Flynn from the American Sports Network. We've talked a lot about Jacoby and his maturation on the field. Jacoby was able to be named a captain at the end of the season, so that speaks a lot more to his development off the field. Can you speak a little bit about his leadership and what he's kind of become off the field?
Yeah, I just to clarify, I did this year what I did last year. At the end of the season, before we headed into the postseason, I offered another opportunity for my team to vote on captains, because as you start the season, you got a really good feel what you think it's going to be, and those guys are always, the right guys because it's selected by their peers. But at the end of the season, sometimes you recognize there are a couple other guys that really do belong in that mix. So I was able to do that again this year. Boy, he's been really a joy to be around. He loves coming to the building. He loves football. He is competitive. He just has so much fun out there in practice. I mean, it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing to be around a guy that just has so much energy. And our kids recognize that. I'm here talking about it. If you had everybody on your team, it's like when you guys go to work. And if everybody in your office was energetic and excited and, happy to be there and, just wanting to do more. Let me do more. Let me do more. I had to tell him this year that I wasn't going to let him be the scout team running back anymore because he always wanted to go over there and carry the ball against our defense. I tell Sparky, he can't do that anymore. We're going to wear him out. He wants to run through our defense, as a show team guy. And so that's rare. So I'm really happy for him in terms of him getting recognized. And then, I kind of, have to little kudos to our defense for going out the last couple of weeks and kind of shutting off some of these other running backs that have received accolades above and beyond Jacoby's, So I think Jacoby's the real deal, and I think he's proven it here week in and week out. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.